And what I want to talk about today is the ongoing massive change that potentially might be coming to the real estate industry. There is a few lawsuits that are going against NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and a few of the largest and most prominent real estate firms in the country. And the biggest difference that this might make is going to be how the buyer agent, how the agent that's going to be representing buyers' commission is going to be looked at. All in all, the main idea is that there's something that NAR has, which in the article I'm about to talk about, is called the participation rule for NAR. NAR is a nationwide association that, by virtue of being affiliated with the National Association of Realtors, you have to pay the buyer's broker through the listing side commission. So essentially what these lawsuits are all going after, and what they're saying, is that sellers are forced to pay a buy-side commission when they don't necessarily have to. Now, there's a big debate on how that's going to be going and where that's going to be going, but two of the main lawsuits got class action status a few months ago. So things are starting to heat up, and the industry is really keeping its eye on what is going to happen and what's going to happen and change. Because essentially what could potentially happen is half the industry might get out of work, right? So I've always had a conversation around, there's 1.6 million members of NAR, meaning 1.6 million active real estate agents in the country. There's a lot of us running around, right? And there's a lot of us that don't necessarily maybe perform at levels that I think would be deemed worthy of the same commissions as top performing brokers. Now, the whole idea of NAR's existence is to protect our jobs, right? That's the main reason that we're part of the National Association of Realtors, is to make sure that our jobs and the whole purpose of being able to practice real estate is protected, and also watching and advocating for home ownership rights. Right now, all of that is on display. I actually I follow a big podcast with Broke Agent Media. Byron, he mentioned that this is the Super Bowl for NAR, and I couldn't agree more. Now, there is actually a massive change that happened in one of the largest associations in the country, in New York. And this news story just dropped. It's from the Real Estate Board of New York. They just decided to change the way that buyer commissions are going to be done. And what this is saying, that by January 1, the seller is going to have to pay buyer agents directly. Now, why is that such a massive change? To me, it's because of the way that it is presented, right? Because right now, buyer agents still get paid. It's the same amount of money, essentially. But when you start to change and separate certain things on how they're getting paid, people evaluate those things differently, especially when you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, which typically is on the commission side of a normal home sale. So when that happens, that could be this is a what's a huge word? Tectonic change for the industry. It's massive, all right? It's like a huge earthquake. Now, what they're saying is that this is to promote transparency and consumer confidence, right? So that's why they're saying that, is that the whole idea in the main other lawsuits that's going on is that sellers, they're essentially blindly forced to pay for these things, and they shouldn't have to. What they're saying is that they should decide what they would want and what they're willing to pay for buyers' commissions. And now the New York board seemingly agrees with them, and by January 1 is starting to say that that is going to be the case. Now, one of the main concerns here is going to be essentially, how is this going to play into the way that sellers are going to decide what a buyer's broker is worth? How do you do that, right? At the end of the day, there's been firms that have come in. There's discount firms. I'm not going to name them by names, but there's been a lot of shakeup in the industry that has essentially came in and discounted our buy-side commissions to allow buyers to now think that we are less worth what we are worth. What do I think is going to happen? This doesn't change anything on the onset that there's still somebody that is going to get paid on the buy side and the list side. But what is going to be a massive change is going to be the change in mindset on what that worth is of the buyer's broker. So now what are buyers going to have to do? They're going to have to prove their value, and they're going to have to showcase, potentially come and negotiate up front about their commissions to sellers, and sellers are going to have to decide if it's worth it or not for them to pay. I also think that because right now the way that the market is set up, that buyers brokers get paid, and it's going to be a conversation between the listing broker decides with the seller, then the seller already has that baked into the whole price. It is an open market style economy for real estate. So essentially what that happens, to me, it gives you a ton of market exposure, and the sellers have the best opportunity to be able to get the best price because there's no hindrance on if somebody, let's say a seller decides they want to pay half of the commission that was used to be standard, maybe the buyer's agents, not maybe, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Buyer's agents on average will then be looking to see who's paying the most money, and that's where they're going to be hurting their buyers. It's going to happen. It's just the way that people, by virtue, they want to make more money, and that is the way that buyer's agents are going to go. So then is it going to happen that do sellers then start offering more money to buyer's agents to be able to incentivize buyers to come into their home? I think that this is going to really change up in a way where people think that they're going to be saving money is ultimately going to cost them more money down the line. The Chicago Association of Realtors also, they stepped up a few weeks ago after this, some of the lawsuit plaintiffs, they settled. RE/MAX settled for $55 million to get out of this thing. Anywhere settled for almost $100 million. I mean, it's big. This is a big thing that is happening. So all of these people, all of these associations are moving ahead and trying to get ahead of the curve to essentially not get sued themselves and stay ahead of anything that is going to be happening. I think that they're assuming that this is going to happen, so that's probably why they're making these change. And also, by the way, a lot of them are leaving NAR, which is another conversation to be had. What's going to happen with the largest trade organization that we have in the country when all of these people leave? If NAR proves that they can protect our jobs and our industry and continue to be able to use the funds that we give them to do what we are hiring them to do, I think that changes everything. But if they can't and they lose this, what is the point of NAR at that point? I mean, they are an amazing association. I have a lot of friends that work there, but if they're not protecting our jobs, then at the same time, the only thing we're paying them for is access to the MLS. And now MLSs are starting to break away from NAR, or they're thinking about it. This is a massive moment for the industry. And if you're a buyer's agent, you need to start thinking about how are you going to sell your own personal value, because it's not an easy free ticket anymore. You're going to have to come in, you're going to have to talk to sellers, you're going to have to talk to listing agents about what you think you're worth. And potentially now these exclusive buyer agreements, they're going to become a lot more of a thing that you're going to want to get buyers to sign to protect the time that you're spending. You're not guaranteed to get paid anymore. So these are all things that are going to be coming and things that we're going to have to be having a conversation about. But this new change in New York is just signaling what's to come. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, because these lawsuits are real. They're happening. It's actively going on in courtrooms right now. And the Department of Justice actually announced that they are thinking about also opening up a lawsuit that they actually try to settle with the last administration and just reopened about antitrust with NAR. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of interesting things. I'm a small broker. I'm an independent broker. I always see shifts as opportunities to be able to see where those opportunities open up. I've always said that the best brokers, they're not real estate agents, they're consultants, because we're consulting on value. And now I'm going to have to put I can't just talk my talk anymore. I'm going to have to walk the walk. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm going to be watching and reporting more as things keep unfolding.